haven't seen the previous video in this series, follow the link on your screen or click the link in the description or pinned comment below.
Seeing as how this comes directly before the WB logo, I'm pretty sure this is the voice of David Zaslav. I think he routinely says this when he kills a project for a tax write-off.
That didn't make any sense at all, but I get it. Make a vague reference to something that's happening in popular culture, try to appeal to people that feel wronged by that event, and profit. Right? Right.
30 seconds of logos after the movie has already started.
What? It's only 30 seconds on top of the 7 seconds of throat singing. That's still less than 50 seconds of logos, and according to your fans, that's supposed to be a sin off.
Imperial Diary, year 10,191, third comment.
When I read from my diary, I choose not to read the comments. The Imperial Diary community is so nasty and negative.
I find that when you do a proper job, the majority of the comments will be positive. You should try it sometime.
Taking your Cheops/pyramid chess and making it look a lot like Junior Mints is at war with Mentos, aka go f*** yourself.
That's racist. You know, because Go exists, and you're basically saying these Go pieces look like candy.
But my father's always been guided by the calculus of power.
Math.
The way in which the narrator is using the word is a function of logic that means calculation, not math. It does not surprise me that you don't get logic.
Gotham's budget is so small nowadays, they're using cheap cutouts to fire up the bat signal.
Jeremy makes a pop culture reference that isn't a sin of the movie cliche.
As incredible as this technology is, it is interesting that they seem to have stopped developing it at not quite flight.
Is interesting a code word for sinful? Because I would really like to know the logic behind sending one of the coldest scenes in cinematic history. Besides, we know the tech is specifically for reducing their own personal gravitational pull, not flight. Gurney uses the same tech in a later scene to slow his descent.
I'll remove all the sins from both of these Dune movies if—
No, you won't. Don't waste our time. Moving on.
Well, you did, but then you felt the need to rub it in before you shot him, so now you're dead.
Yelling at the screen cliche. And this might be worse, considering, he's dead.
Never stand with your back towards the open. How many times do I have to tell you that, huh?
Was this the first? Because this movie is clearly taking place right after the last one ended. And the only thing his mom has really taught him is how to use the voice. I highly doubt they've been in enough situations where she's had to tell him about leaving his back turned to the open.
Did you or did you not send the previous film? Because how did you miss the scene of Gurney berating Paul for keeping his back open? Oh wait, you didn't miss that scene because you send it.
Tells you by your footsteps, Gurney Halleck.
Someone might imitate my stride.
They wouldn't.
So I'm giving you a sin for feigning ignorance here and for not recognizing that Paul's mother is the one that came up with this mantra, especially since we know she's been training him for the benefit of the Bene Gesserit. What, you gonna pretend you don't know the story of Dune now, even though you send the original film too?
Yeah, I suggest you get some rest.
Once again, some poor underling gets killed for something not his fault, just so we know that the bad guy is truly despicable. I'm glad they did, because I was really beginning to like this Hugo Drax guy.
Not his fault? This was a case of not knowing when to shut up, and I'm starting to understand why you didn't understand this scene.
He's asking why we're so late. He thinks you're spies.
But he decided to bury the lead by first scolding the extremely unimportant punctuality.
Or he assumed that because they don't respect his time, they might not be trustworthy. In other words, the Fremen are Japanese women on first dates.
You can keep saying it, but I have yet to receive visual confirmation.
What the hell do you mean? Do you just immediately forget what you saw in movies you've literally done videos on? Paul killed a Fremen fighter at the climax of Dune Part 1. In that movie, we learned that Fremen fighters are some of the best in the galaxy. Dude, you complained specifically about that thing.
I know Paul Atreides, much like Neo before him, is the one. I know he's been training with some very well-regarded Jason Momoas in his lifetime. But Duncan, when talking about fighting one of the Fremen, said,
I've never come so close to dying. There's no finer fighter in the Imperium.
And I think we're supposed to believe Duncan is the best fighter in the whole Dune universe, especially after he laid waste to nearly 20 Sardaukar in a previous scene. So that Paul survives this seems like some supreme bullshit, even if he maybe has a Sherlock Holmesian way of figuring out his opponent's fighting moves.
Drinking someone's eye water.
Which would be weird to us, but to a society that specifically recycles bodily fluids due to the extreme drought of a desert planet, this isn't sinful at all.
The Reverend Mothers are tasked with holding the memories of all the Reverend Mothers that came before them, so I'll be given centuries of pain and sorrow. It's lethal for men.
Why? Why is it lethal for men? We don't find out until later that it's because she has to drink a blue poison of some sort. But after she said she had no idea how they anoint Reverend Mothers here, does she know that? Do all ceremonies include some sort of lethal ingestion? Or is the act of downloading 500 terabytes of memories dangerous in and of itself?
I think you think that by asking a million questions at a time, it'll cover for the fact that those questions are either silly or are answered by the film itself. The water of life is lethal to all humans. The difference is the Bene Gesserit have control over their biochemistry through training, something Paul states aloud in this film.
It's no miracle. My mother was trained to do that. Poison transmutation is something advanced Bene Gesserit can do. Not the Mahdi.
Since the Bene Gesserit are a cult of exclusively women, do I even need to finish this sentence? Also, I'd like to point out that the sin counter doesn't go up here. Aside from the times where I'm telling a joke that isn't a sin, I started randomly not raising the sin counter because of instances like this, where CinemaSins themselves forget to do it. But I still get people in the comment section not realizing I do it on purpose to make fun of Jeremy's editor.
You're so good at sensing and feeling, huh? You're just now finding this out.
Because this is their literal first interaction?
Having a holy poison, but no holy hand grenade.
I would have sinned this pop culture reference, but then I realized this is Jeremy skipping over the scene of Paul explaining that his mother was trained to overcome the poison, so now there's two.
Now that's interesting because in the film books I've studied, the anthropologists say in order to properly sandwalk, you actually have to.
Lisan al-Gaib splaining.
No matter how you dress it up, using the term mansplaining is sexist. Careful, PB. I got shit for saying that exact thing in my Captain Marvel video. Dude, I make the Barbie video. I gives no fucks.
So, what's your idea of the perfect date? Oh, you know, something simple like a long
skip. Oh, and Jeremy sings during this scene as well, so I'm saving your ears this time. But only this time.
The Fremen engage with the Harkonnens, and I am focusing on this one guy shooting at them who inexplicably gets shot by someone off screen, even though all the Fremen in frame have daggers. None of the other Harkonnens get shot during this entire sequence, so who's doing the shooting on the Fremen side?
Jeremy has never heard of snipers.
If the shield goes up after the guy stopped firing, how did Chani's rocket not get deflected by the shield? It feels like a cheat. You wanted to show the rocket getting blocked by the shield momentarily so that it would be that much more satisfying when it somehow made it through, even though we've been told that's impossible. Shit, man. And show the rocket smashing into the Thopter without this nonsense. It's just as satisfying and you aren't breaking any rules.
Amazingly, you show evidence that Chani shot the rocket while the ship was firing at Paul, and you still somehow don't understand this scene.
Penis tent.
Jeremy says boner. And if your penis looks like that, just give up.
Failing to properly secure your blade.
It looks like it's in its sheath to me.
Awesome. It looks like the movie took my advice about simply using the lasers in the first place and not worrying about hiding in the sand for a sneak attack that ends up killing a bunch of your own people.
So this is getting a sin removal, right? Right?
I'm here.
Yes, she's here. It explains fully that Chani and Paul are now sleeping together. Now I want to know about the sex and whether the sand is rough, coarse, irritating, and gets everywhere.
A more interesting question is, does it really get that wet though?
Nothing fancy or you will shame my teaching.
So Stilgar's been giving worm riding lessons to Paul? I know this is a tough ask in a movie that's almost 3 hours, but can I see it?
No.
I'm real happy for Paul getting on that worm, watching him ride off while the Fremen cheer him. Got a question though. How do you make the sandworm stop?
You don't. They get tired and you jump off. You gotta be athletic to be a Fremen. Notice you haven't seen any high-caloried ones?
We gave them something to hope for.
That's not hope!
And I guess none of the Fremen down below wondered why Paul was yelling, "That's not hope!" at the Reverend Mother.
Bruv, he's been telling them he's not their Jesus the entire film up to this point. At this point, they just brush the domestic dispute off, like Walter Jr. Your pancakes.
I've lost them.
I wonder if productivity has improved since Raban began the snapping necks policy for completely understandable mistakes.
I think the answer to that question is a resounding, you think?
Muad'Dib, the prophet, the one who points the way.
These are our own religious patterns, aren't they?
From this, the princess is able to figure out that Paul is still alive. Never mind that Muad'Dib and its meaning was established long before Paul and Jessica came to live with the Fremen. After reasoning that this is an unusual name for a Fremen, she just figures it out. This is taking sleuthing to an impossible Sherlock Holmesian level.
You mean the women who have been training and studying this religion their entire lives recognize a tenet of that religion? Well, I, for one, am completely shocked.
Fate being all like, hand paint me like one of your French girls.
Lot of pop culture references in this one. Hint for all you slow people, this is how you know a movie is good. CinemaSins will spend 20 minutes telling you they watch other movies and commercials.
This deleted scene from the movie Elvis shows a lighter side of the king of rock and roll. Baz Luhrmann donated the scene to Denis Villeneuve for preservation in Dune Part 2. We are lucky to have such stewards of cinema willing to go to such astonishing lengths to preserve film history.
See what I mean? This sin is simply Jeremy wanting to tell you that this actor played Elvis in a previous movie. I don't know how YouTube hasn't demonetized these guys for false advertising yet, because this ain't what the title promised us.
How do the Harkonnens have any underlings left after all the murders they constantly commit against them?
The Census Bureau asked that same question about the Chinese population after learning about Mao.
It's very confusing why the Harkonnens are not facing consequences for what they did to the Atreides. There's a lot of, oh, if the great houses only knew the truth, they would be pissed. Are the great houses not going to hear word of this very public execution of these 3 Atreides soldiers?
Am I to believe this is your very first time watching this movie? Because I don't, and that would mean you know the Emperor set all of this up, which means they have Imperial protection for this act.
It's amazing to me in a movie almost 3 hours that we have time to see an entire reimagining of Gladiator shot in black and white featuring the engineers from Prometheus. It's like an apology to Ridley Scott for making a sequel to Blade Runner.
Did you just insinuate that Blade Runner 2049 is a bad movie? F it, here's Future Birdman's entire video on that movie just for that bunk insinuation.
When you're not performing your duties, do they keep you in a little box? Cells.
Cells.
Interlinked.
Interlinked.
What's it like to hold the hand of someone you love? Interlinked.
Interlinked.
Within cells interlinked.
Within cells interlinked.
Dreadfully.
Dreadfully.
What's it like to be filled with dread? Dreadfully.
Dreadfully.
Do you like being separated from other people? Distinct.
Distinct.
Dreadfully distinct.
Dreadfully distinct against the
A
dark.
tall white fountain plate.
A tall white fountain plate.
You're not even close to baseline.
59 seconds of logos, which is a red flag that this movie don't give a fuck about any plans I have this afternoon.
Who goes to see a movie and has plans after? As you're demonstrating, most people don't Google the runtime of films, so usually going to see a movie is the plan for the day, and watching films is literally your job.
Now that everyone's up to speed, this motherfucker's crazy, am I right?
This is the guest wing.
This is the guest wing? People agree to be guests here?
Hey Jeremy, do you see those little rectangles in the background? Yeah, those are called doors.
Now I'm completely taken out of the movie with this out of nowhere Reese's dark chocolate peanut butter cup ad.
This movie's very, very good, guys.
The bloodline is secured.
Jesus Christ, this is the quickest movie pregnancy since Species.
Despite making a video on it, Jeremy has strangely never seen the movie Alien.
Luckily, Paul is the first asshole to come out of this ground, or else Gurney would have been f***ing toast.
And, depending on how you look at it, luckily you weren't shot into a Kleenex, so you could disturb everyone here with your movie takes.
Okay, which timeline are we on now? Is this MJ approaching Thanos, or is she approaching Cable? Why haven't we gotten a Thanos versus Cable movie yet? Or Captain America versus Johnny Storm movie?
Who's betting that when Deadpool 3 gives him something similar, he's going to send it anyway? Because I'm betting 50 cents.
I know where your father hid the family atomics.
Why didn't Paul know where the atomic bombs were hidden? The guy was being groomed to be the next leader of Arrakis, and you're telling me his dad just kept that a secret from him because...
Because he wasn't ready? I know you can't sandwalk or know how we retrieve the spice, my son. Hell, I don't even know that. But here is where we keep the nukes.
Also, 8,000 years and humanity hasn't come up with something scarier than atomic weapons? I do not believe you.
Well, let's keep things in perspective. The sun is essentially a giant nuclear reactor, and it's been powered by that reaction for billions of years. I'm just saying, nuclear power is one of those things that just works, and until humans evolve to withstand a nuclear blast... No, not that kind of evolve.
Iskifta chaya and sagasa.
Yes, the movie will be much richer after we see how the water of life is extracted from a baby sandworm. My daughter is adding 2 extra minutes to the movie so that I can simply tell you to give the drink to my son when he drops by.
Now you want me to believe that you wouldn't have given this movie a sin for never having explained to you where that liquid comes from?
My lord, I would recommend you stay inside those.
Is there an actual function these assistants do that the Harkonnens value? Hell, I'd advise the assistants to keep their mouths shut, but A, that won't guarantee their safety, and B, my throat will be slit if I dare mention that to them.
I think Jeremy has forgotten that these people are all villains. This is like if Adolf shot a stormtrooper in the head or when Herman Cain died from the virus. Am I really supposed to care?
The Harkonnens aren't done here. They just went back to reload.
Excuse me, what? They just went back to reload? Is that what I'm hearing? Because of this absolute dumbassery, the Harkonnens give everyone just enough time to be upset about the attack and head south before they come back to finish the job. Why didn't Lex Elvis have a whole fleet waiting after they bombed this place? Went back to reload is almost as unbearable as we're running out of fuel in The Last Jedi.
Is this dude still triggered over that? I thought I proved you wrong about that years ago. Triggered over what? So in The Last Jedi video...
Talk to me, Thomas.
I'm not quite sure why Paul is hoping Jamis will speak to him beyond the grave. I guess he feels guilt over killing him at the end of the last movie or something. But what kind of wisdom is he expecting from him? The guy was not exactly an influential person in Paul's life before they got into that duel.
Again, you clearly took stupid pills that made you forget the previous movie. Paul was having visions of Jamis prior to killing him. This is what he's hoping for here.
Muad Max, Fury Robe.
I would have gone with Ice Age. You know, on account of that being her best role.
If
the prophecy says Paul will be revived by Desert Spring Tears, which pretty much explicitly means Chani, since her Fremen name is Desert Spring, why the f does she need the water of life?
The prophecy is fake. Calm down, nerds. This story is older than the justices on the Supreme Court. What revived Paul was more of the water of life.
This is the only justice that will be served in the entire movie, and I'm not sure enough people will notice that because of all the cool world building, great imagery, and or something like that.
Told you I wouldn't skip it the next time.
Our enemies are all around us, and in so many futures they prevail. But I do see a way. There is a narrow way through.
The movie steals the Doctor Strange from Infinity War.
Didn't I just tell you this story is older than LeBron James?
So this is how we'll survive. By being Harkonnens.
I don't think that factors into what happens at all. You end up making a play for the throne where you kill the Baron and his nephews, but I figure you could do that without being a Harkonnen yourself.
It's almost like he's the Messiah, and that what he's saying may come up in a sequel or something.
This interminable slow-motion walk through a crowd brought to you by Zack Snyder.
No, see, when Snyder does it, he's masturbating in the background. It's different.
Dune.
Roll credits, or ride in on a credits worm, if that makes more sense. Also, how is Dune a Fremen name when we've been seeing and hearing stuff that is clearly influenced by Arabic? Dune is ultimately derived from French, so I grant you, you're close to it being Fremen, but you're a few letters off.
This is multiple millennia into the future. Arabic has already morphed into what it is that the Fremen speak. Your position only works if you're talking about present-day Earth, where Arabic is a relatively young language. At this point, it's over 11,000 years old and could have incorporated other loan words into the dialect the Fremen speak. In other words, science fiction.
This is my father's ducal signet.
It's been over 2 hours. I think we all have to take a ducal signet. Do you guys think that when Charlotte Rampling goes to bed at night, all of her dreams have a burned-in image of this netting?
No.
For 90 generations, we have supervised House Atreides. They were promising, but they were becoming dangerously defiant.
This might matter to me at all if I knew even a little bit about what this meant. In Dune Episode 1, we see Papa Atreides do exactly what the Emperor asks. So, what was the issue? Did they refuse to eat their vegetables?
She literally just said they were becoming
dangerously defiant.
She gave us the direct exposition that answers the question you were about to ask before you asked it, and you still asked it. How is it possible to be this dense? Black holes are jealous.
The sandstorm that's approaching threatens the integrity of our shields.
How rude of it. Goodness gracious, great ball of fire.
Someone get this man a record deal already. I mean, if I have to listen to Sexy Red, this can't be that much worse.
I don't really know why, but watching this makes me extremely horny.
Nigga, I did not need to hear that.
Also, the Fremen don't just sprint on the sand. They also practice their starts from under the sand. With this kind of athleticism on display, it's a shame we never get to see the Summer Olympics of 10,192.
They would have been disqualified for decades of performance-enhancing drug abuse. You know, like Russia.
The Fremen don't have shields, so once again, the Sardaukar are idiots for not using guns.
As was explained to you in the last movie's video, they don't use guns because that would attract the worms. Like me, every time I joke about Christianity.
Baron seems to think that ascending to emperor works like musical chairs, and that if he sits on the throne, he wins.
I think this is a man that recognizes his mortality, so he's trying to sit on the throne once before he dies.
Look who's back from the dead.
Thanos vs. Drax Part 2 will be infinitely better this time, because Thanos doesn't have the Reality Stone. This time... Oh, I see. Never mind.
Once again, Drax would have gotten bodied by Thanos, because we saw him get bodied by Ronan. If this were the comics, though...
The rest of the Fremen and Harkonnen just watch, because it's obvious that this particular fight is personal.
Jeremy has spent the entire video complaining about the minions of the Harkonnen leaders being killed for getting on their nerves. But now, he's actively asking for them to get in the way. And that would be fine because more dead Nazis, including space ones, is a good thing. I'm just pointing out the inconsistency, that's all.
May thy knife chip and shatter.
May thy knife chip and shatter.
I am so rooting for Fade, and that is all this movie's fault.
Did Jeremy just say, Hail Harkonnen?
Movie makes it look like one character is doomed, but it's actually the other character who has been surprised, stabbed, or shot cliche. Also, we spent a whole movie building this maniac up just to have him die at the end. I guess they could always bring him back, but here he is. This series is Darth Maul. At least he lasted longer than the White Walkers.
I think you keep forgetting Dune is a book that's older than who they cast to play Lilith in the Borderlands movie. Did you expect Fade Rotha to survive here? Then that would mean they would have to prolong the conclusion of this story, and we've already had to wait 3 years and 2 delays for this one.
Also, Lisan al-Gaib, bum, bum, beep, bum, 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 bim, bum. Now you're just the one that I used to know.
I will now be removing that one from my iTunes, thanks.
Silence! Listen, Al-Gaib!